Hello. Give me a minute here to get all logged in, let some people join, and we'll get going on this broadcast. Oh, come on, computer. Looks like we got somebody logged in already. All right, we got a few people on here. Hey there, how's it going? Natalie Lopez, Nathan Duthie, I think. Hello. DT Quail and Rabbitry, hello there. And Prepared Brad, hey. Duncan and LPS Lovers, hello. Thanks for coming back. How's everybody doing this evening? Hopefully well. Isabel made it. Good to see you again. Olivia, hey, how are you? And PC Lockhart, hello from Georgia, huh? How are you doing? All right, looks like we got a couple of people coming in tonight. So, well, guys, I hope you're staying warm. We're how many shoes did you make? I don't know what you mean. How many shoes? I'm getting a question already. Olivia says, how many shoes did you make? I never made shoes. I'm not sure what you're referring to, honestly. I'm kind of lost there. Yeah, a bit cold, yeah. Hey, aloha quails, how are you? All right, what I was saying is I hope everybody's warm where you're at. It's a bit cold here, too. We've got a warm front coming through, though. Let's see, yesterday when I got up, it was -3 degrees Fahrenheit. Saturday it's supposed to be 60 degrees, only in southwest Missouri, right? What else we got here? LLJ, hey, how are you? Oh, Olivia saying, how many videos did you make? I don't know how many videos I've made. I have no idea, honestly. I'd have to go back and look. Probably a couple hundred. I don't know. I'm not sure how many videos I've got. LPS Lovers says there's 5 inches of snow where I am. Let's see, LPS Lovers, where are you again? I don't remember where you are. So, aloha, 74 degrees, huh? Aloha Quail says it's 74 degrees where he's at. Not here. No, it's I don't know what the temperature is right now. I got above freezing today though. I think it got to 34 degrees today, so not bad. It actually felt pretty nice. But again, it's supposed to be up to 60 by the weekend, and then I don't know, probably another cold front or two coming through. But it was cold the last couple of days. We did get some snow. We only got about, I don't know, maybe 2-3 inches at the most, enough to shut down school for a couple of days. The snow plows were out, but it was just so cold they just couldn't really do much, really. Where was I going with that now? How many 74 degrees? I missed something in there somewhere. Forgot, lost train of thought. We'll go back to the chat and see what's going on. Joe Shelburne has 4 new litters of bunnies this week. Yeah, no kidding. So, hey, good, congratulations on that. 4 new litters. That's a lot of rabbits to keep up with and a lot of rabbits to feed. I'm still working on getting my first litter for this season. It's been just a terrible breeding season for me. Nothing but one problem after another, but hey, that's the nature of it. Sometimes it'll pick back up. I'm not really too worried about it. Oh, Isabel says, come to Canada. It's been -0 for the last 3 weeks. And I'm not complaining. I mean, -3 is cold, and it's really cold. But yeah, I don't want it to be any colder than that. You can have that cold weather. Prepared Brad says about the same in West Virginia. Robert G says 75 degrees in Peoria, Arizona. And also one question. My quail are about 6 weeks old and no crowing so far. I hope I have no roosters, but when will the eggs come? Usually anytime now, 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how much light you have. Again, they need about 14 hours of light a day for the roosters to crow and the females to lay eggs. So if you don't have much light, especially in the wintertime, the daylight's not that long, you're going to need to add some artificial lighting. So anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks, as long as they have that much light, they should start laying, they should start crowing. All right, Boris, hello, how are you? I don't know what I missed, Olivia. I'm sorry. I get lost in the chat sometimes. It slides by. I missed something, apparently. I'm sorry. Connor says, hey, Chris, greetings from the 8 a.m. Friday morning in I'm not even going to try to pronounce that word, Thailand. Only 28 degrees Celsius here this morning. So 28 degrees Celsius, that would be about, I can't do the conversion in my head, but what's that about 15 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere right around in there? I don't know. But that's pretty chilly. Harshman Hills asks, do you need roosters to have female eggs? No, you don't. Females will lay eggs regardless of whether there's roosters around. If you want to incubate them, of course, you need roosters to have fertile eggs, but you don't need roosters for just to have eggs. All right, so, all right, Melody's asking, what kind of artificial lighting, incandescent or LED? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't need to be super bright light. What I use is just cheap shop lights most of the time if they're indoor. Outdoor, I just have some solar lights hooked up. They're LED lights. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be full spectrum, anything like that. It just needs to be light. And I would go with like a white or a yellowish light, not a red light. But, you know, no colored light, just regular light. All right, let's see. Olivia is asking, what kind of animals do you like? I like almost all kinds of animals. There's very few I don't like. Wasps. I don't like wasps. But other than that, most animals, I pretty much like them. Prepared Brad, I don't know why I called you Bill, but Brad, it says, my quail are 3.5 weeks old now. When should I be able to put them outside in this winter weather? You know, really any time now. They're fully feathered out by that time. You need to wean them off the heat light. So what I do is I move the heat light, you know, start moving it off of them a little bit. Get them to where they're completely off the heat light. That usually takes about a week, maybe a week and a half, depending on how your birds are reacting to that. When I move the light a little bit further away from the brooder, they'll usually crowd underneath it for about a day, and then they start spreading out. Then I move it a little bit further away. They'll crowd back underneath it for a day, and then they'll start spreading out again, and then I move it a little bit further away until I just completely remove it. Give them a couple of days without the heat light whatsoever, and then you should be able to move them outside. They should be okay at that point. Hopefully, I hope that answers it, and hope that helps. Robert G says, I have them in a shed with the light on, okay, on all night long. Is that bad? Well, it's not terrible, but I would give them a break from the light. You know, there is some concern about them going crazy, I guess, if they don't get sleep. And I don't know if it holds true in animals or not, you know, if the light's going to keep them awake or not. But, you know, interesting fact, you can actually die from a lack of sleep. And you can die from a lack of sleep faster than you'll starve to death or die from a lack of water. It's crazy, but it can happen. So you do need to make sure that you do give them some darkness. Just if you can put your lights on a timer, put them on a timer, and where they just come on and go off automatically, and give them about 8 hours of darkness. What is that? Is that 8 hours? 8 and 14 is 20. Well, you can do the math. 14 hours of daylight, the rest of the time darkness. Connor O'Leary says, I found this morning first egg season. However, also found 3 of my 5 males and feathers, skin, and all removed from their head. There is 12 females in the same cage also. Yeah, it sounds like probably what's happened is they're starting to go into breeding pattern, and you've got at least a couple, maybe 1 or 2 females that are probably not going to have it. They're not willing to be bred, so they start picking on the males. And that's pretty common when the females get real aggressive. If you watch, you may be able to pick out the 1 or 2 that are being real aggressive and just remove them. That'll help. Or usually it just fixes itself in the long run. But yeah, they'll pick all the feathers off the head. Sometimes they'll get at the eyes and start pecking at the eyes too. I've had birds get their eye completely pecked out. And they do just fine. They live just fine with one eye. But still, if you can avoid it, you can avoid it. So, all right, what else? Olivia, I like dogs and cats. I like bunnies too. You know, I like dogs and cats and bunnies. I like cats just fine. I don't like them living in my house. So, you know, cats are fine outside. Cats are fine at the neighbor's house. They're, friend's house that have cats. I like them. I'll pet them. They're great to have around, but I don't like them living in my house. I do like my dog quite a bit. So if it comes down to the pet, if I have to have a cat or a dog, I'm a dog person. But, that's, again, I like cats, just don't want one living in my house. All right, Natalie wants to know, have you ever considered raising rabbits for show purposes? No, showing's not really my deal. I raise them for meat rabbits only. I don't really care about show quality rabbits. It's just not my deal. Now, if you were going to look at selling rabbits, that would probably be the way to go. raising rabbits that are show quality rabbits, because they'll sell for a much higher premium than a meat rabbit will. And there's a much bigger market for show rabbits than there is for meat rabbits, at least around here. But to me, I'm not really concerned about selling a bunch of rabbits. I don't want to keep up with that many rabbits to make it worth selling them. So no, I don't bother with raising show quality rabbits. Aloha Quail says 24-hour light will make them die earlier and they will lay less eggs over time. Yeah, good point. So yes, you need to give them some darkness. Don't give them 24 hours of light a day. All right, let's see what else we got here. Kristen Stagg says, great information in your videos. This week my female gave me my first egg. And as you say for your videos, you can raise quail almost anywhere. We live in an RV. Awesome. So you got your first egg and you've got quail in an RV. That's probably quite a bit of maintenance to keep up with cleaning the cages out. But hey, if you don't have a ton of birds, there's no reason you can't keep them in an RV. Glad it's working out well for you. Matthew Cruz says, do you ship and sell fertile eggs? I'm not really set up to ship eggs. I don't produce enough fertile eggs to make it worth. I mean, I live right in the middle of town, so I can't really expand my quail operation that much to produce enough eggs to make it worth selling them and shipping them and all those kinds of things. What I would recommend is Kansas City Quail Farm. Fantastic bloodlines, great people. Check them out. You can just look them up online. Go to them, tell them I sent you, Slightly Rednecked, or, well, I don't know if they'll Chris. There's a lot of Chris's in the world, but tell them Slightly Rednecked sent you over there. They'll take care of you and they'll get you set up with some good birds. Olivia says, but I barely like dogs because the fairy gets everywhere on your couch. The fur gets everywhere on your couch, I think is what you're saying. Yeah, that's why I have a short-haired dog. Yeah, he still sheds, but it's not that bad. I don't get fur everywhere. I've shown the dog before. He's in the other room right now. But maybe before this video is over, I'll bring him in. If you watch the last video I posted up about the worst rabbit breeding season ever, you'll see him running around in the background, snooping in the tarps that hang under the rabbit hutches. You'll see him in there. Allison, hello, how are you? Okay, Dave Ferradu says, that reminded me of something for some reason. Anyway, Dave says, hey, Chris, been quite a struggle with the cold and frozen water bowls. We went down to 6 degrees Fahrenheit a couple of days ago. The next day found one dead. Hope I'm past the cold. Dave, that's pretty rare. Oh, rabbit, that is. Okay, you're talking about a rabbit dying. It's rare for rabbits to die from the cold, but occasionally it will happen, especially if the rabbit's like old, a little bit weak to begin with. Maybe there's something wrong with it. The cold can weed those out. It's kind of a survival of the fittest kind of thing. So you can look at it a couple of ways. I kind of look at it, if that happens, that it's just putting that rabbit out of its misery because there's probably something that was wrong with it to begin with. And it's also weeding out those weak genetics. So I'm not worried about passing those on. So it's not really the end of the world when you lose a rabbit to something like that. It's rare that you will lose a healthy rabbit to the cold. I mean, they've got big fur coats on, and they tend to do way better in the cold than they do in the heat of summer. But yeah, I know what you mean. I've lost rabbits before in the cold. I've lost them in the summer. I've lost them just for whatever reason. Sometimes a rabbit just dies for whatever reason. You have no idea why. But no, I don't ship rabbits. I don't even actually sell rabbits. I don't breed enough to... I mean, I'll put one up for sale every once in a while, but they just don't sell very well in my area. Dwayne says, all my quail stopped laying. Why? Probably a lack of light. I mean, it's wintertime and the light, there's just not enough light during the day to keep them laying. If you want them to lay, you can add some lights, get them up to 14 hours a day of light. They'll probably start laying again. But mine have pretty much stopped laying too because the solar lights I have out there, there's just not enough daylight to charge them up to run long enough to give the birds 14 hours of light a day. So I don't have any eggs coming in right now either. They'll start back up here pretty soon though. Melody wants to know, where am I located? I'm located in southwest Missouri, right in the corner near Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri, where they kind of all meet together. That's where I live. All right, where else we got here? Olivia says, is it okay to put a bunny outside in the freezing cold in this? Yes and no. I mean, yes, it's okay to have rabbits outside. If this has been a rabbit that's been kept inside all its life, you need to acclimate it before you just take it from a 75-degree house out to a 30-degree, outside and just throw it outside. You also need to make sure that you provide them with wind block so that they don't have a wind, blowing on them, because that will, summer or winter, that can really do damage to your rabbits. You don't want them in that kind of an environment. Um, LLJ says I'm the hunt for skillet items now to restore. We love our local thrift shops, and I've always come across them. Any advice for rusted ones? Yeah, I need to do a video on how to restore some cast iron. I've got some that needs to be done. When you're looking at cast iron pans, if you're looking for one to restore, don't worry about rust. Rust is no big deal as long as it's not like pitted. As long as it doesn't have a bunch of big divots and pits in the pan itself, then the rust is no big deal whatsoever. If it's just lightly rusted, a lot of times it's just surface rust. So you can just take like a scrubby, sponge with a scouring end on it and just scrub it down real good and scrub all that rust off. As soon as you get done scrubbing all that rust off, rinse it off real good, dry it good with a paper towel, stick it on top of your stove, heat it up to dry it completely out because cast iron will rust incredibly fast, especially if it's one that's already been rusted and you've been scrubbing on it because you've scrubbed away a lot of that seasoning. It's going to rust in no time whatsoever. So dry it out real good, put it on your stove, bring it up to heat, drive all the water off of it, and then just season it like you normally would. Rub it down with some some lard is the way I kind of prefer to do it most of the time. And it's just a thin layer. I mean, just very thin. Just rub it down with some lard, coconut oil. Any kind of oil will work, but I like lard. Stick it upside down on the rack in your oven. Put something underneath it to catch any grease that drops off. Crank your oven up to 400 degrees. Let it go for 45 minutes. And then kill the oven, open the door, let it cool off a little bit until you can handle it. Take it out. Do the whole process all over again. You don't have to do it all the same night. Do it all over again, and I usually do it about 3 or 4 times. And then that's usually a pretty good base coat. And then go to cooking with it. And the first thing you want to cook, something greasy like bacon. Bacon is one of the best things to cook first, right, in a brand new or in a cast iron pan that you've reseasoned because it's real greasy and it adds to that seasoning a little bit. And then, you don't need to wash it with soap and water. Take that bacon out, wipe it down with a paper towel. I mean, while it's hot, as soon as you take the bacon out, dump the grease out into a mason jar or something, save it. Don't throw your grease out. Bacon grease is awesome. And then just take a paper towel or, an old dish rag or something like that and wipe it out real good. And that's probably all you'll need to do. If there's anything stuck on it, like if some of the bacon stuck to it and left something behind, then like in my video the other day, you can use the salt trick. Just pour a little salt on it and scrub it with a paper towel, and that'll usually take that right off. So hopefully that helps. Allison Truby says, I lost 3 rabbits this week due to coccidia. Somebody's going to correct me on my pronunciation of that. They already did once, and I can't ever get that word pronounced right. Hopefully I got it right. So far I'm trying to hand raise and feed 9 babies, and I have 3 on cord, so hopefully they're sick. It was hard losing them, but I'm good. Allison, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm kind of curious, though. Do you know how you contracted that, or how the rabbits contracted that, I should say? Did you keep them on the ground, like in a colony setting, or did you maybe bring a new rabbit in that had it, and that's what got it passed on? It's rare for rabbits in cages, suspended cages, to get that. It's not impossible. It's just rare, unless you bring a rabbit in that already has it and it passes it on, or the rabbits are in contact with the ground. That's one of the reasons I don't raise colony rabbits, and it depends on your area. But if you raise colony rabbits, rabbits on the ground are going to have a higher risk of contracting diseases, parasites, all those kinds of things. It's just a higher percentage. Now, how much higher? Again, it depends on where you live, what it's like in your area. But that's there is a higher chance of that. All right, where are we at here? Can male rabbits live in the same cage together? Well, for a while, it's probably best to separate your male rabbits after a while, though. There is a time where they'll probably start fighting with each other if you leave them in a cage together too long, especially if it's a small cage. I would separate them out. I don't really like to keep my rabbits are pretty much solitary creatures. They don't form, like if you look at rabbits in the wild, they're not pack animals. They don't live in packs. Now, you can raise rabbits in colonies. It does happen, and people do have them get along, but they don't need companionship like you would think that other animals do. If you look at rabbits again in the wild, you don't see like 2 rabbits coming out together very often, except for during breeding season when it's a male chasing the female. That's about it. Rabbits are pretty much solitary. They're fine living by themselves. Okay, where are we at here? I've lost some track, so if I missed your comment, I apologize for that. Connor O'Leary says, I have my grow-out rabbits in a large aviary with my grow-out male quail. They all seem to snuggle up together at night when the temp drops a bit. All best friends. Interesting. Never tried to keep rabbits and quail in the same area. There may be some concern with some, illness passing back and forth between the two of them. But heck, if you're not having problems, don't worry about it. Aloha Quail, that's a good point. You said you use electrolysis to remove stubborn rust. Yeah, when I get something that's a really badly rusted cast iron pan, an electrolysis tub's the way to go. And that's pretty easy. You just get, again, I need to do a video on this, so I'll share it with you guys. But you get a big, big bucket, a big tub, something like that, an old piece of scrap metal of some kind that you don't care about at all. Hook a battery cable up to that. Hook a battery cable up to your cast iron pan. You put some water in there with some kind of catalyst like washing soda. Stir that all together, and I can't remember the exact measurements. I got to look back at my notes. But you stir that all together, stir it up. Put the negative on one side with the scrap metal. Your positive battery cable hooked up to your cast iron pan. Submerge them in the water. Hook that up to a battery charger, and it'll pull all that rust off that pan. It'll ruin whatever piece of scrap metal you have. It'll pull all that rust onto that scrap metal and just tear it up. But that's why you use scrap metal. But man, it will take that cast iron pan down to the metal. I mean the bare metal. And it works great. Little effort whatsoever. All right. Bicondobi, Mama? I think I'm pronouncing that right. I had a rabbit has mucus coming out of its mouth when it's eating. Do you have any idea what's going on? Boy, that could be a lot of different things. That doesn't sound like a good sign. Things you would look at would be, let's see, snuffles, or if it's not sneezing or any of those kinds of things, it may not be a big problem. But it sounds like respiratory problems or snuffles or, any number of things could be causing that. I would definitely isolate that rabbit from the rest of your rabbits until you can figure out what's going on with it to make sure it doesn't have something contagious that it passes on to the rest of your rabbits. Keep it, 30, 40 feet away. Aloha Quails has got some questions about that too. He's wondering, is it only when it's eating? Same kind of thing I'm wondering. And what color is the mucus? All right, Natalie Lopez wants to know how the new buck has been doing. He's doing fine. Just settled in just fine. Comes to the feeder, says hi to me every morning. Not quite as friendly as the old buck, but pretty close. And I think he'll settle in and get friendlier as it goes. All right, what else we got? Giant Angoras is on. You're going to be breeding your Angoras tomorrow, maybe. Well, hey, good luck with the breeding. Hope that works. Allison, you bought a rabbit from Rural King and it was sick, so it spread. Oh man, that's terrible. Hate to hear that. They probably got that from somebody locally. I know, like our what's our farm supply store here? It's Atwoods. We've got an Atwoods here, and they advertised for a while back that they would sell rabbits. They were looking for rabbits to buy to sell. So it's not their fault probably, but still, it's unfortunate. I'm sorry that happened. All right, Quez the Hunter wants to know, do you hunt? Yes, I do hunt. I don't hunt rabbits because I raise rabbits, but I hunt squirrel. I hunt squirrel and deer mostly. Those are primarily the two things that I hunt. Crystal Marshall says, what do you think of drop-down built-in nest boxes? I don't see any problem with those. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I don't personally use them just because I just like to have nest boxes I can just pull out of the cage, put back in the cage. There are times where, your rabbits, especially during molting season, they get like fur block, where they're molting their fur, so they're, licking a bunch of that up, and it tends to, their droppings tend to collect on that fur, and it will hang up on the cage, and that's kind of a real pain to kind of clean off sometimes. I imagine with a drop-down nest box, it would be even worse, but I don't know that for sure. That's just my guess on it. I like having a nest box I can just pull out of there and clean out real easily. I think it would be a real pain to get in there and try to clean out all that stuff from a drop-down nest box. Now, try it out if you want to. Again, I don't see any problem with it. It's just not something I'm using. Silent Wayne says, howdy, new to your channel, excited to learn, have chickens, looking to add rabbits and quail. Well, Silent Wayne, thanks for joining a live broadcast. Glad you can make it in here. And thank you for the kind comments. I hope you find the videos helpful. I've got plenty of information, so if you have questions, just let me know. I'll do my best to answer them for you. Ty Bled says, kits are getting bloat with a question mark. I don't know if you're referring to somebody else or if you're asking me a question. Excuse me. Bloat is pretty common in rabbits, especially like if they get weaned too quick, something like that. You can use like infant gas drops to kind of help treat that a little bit sometimes. A lot of times you don't even know it's happening though until it's too late and the rabbit just dies from it. But you can use those, like I said, infant gas drops for that. Giant Angores wants to know if I still have the old California buck. Nope, I posted him up as a pet. Somebody came and got him that day. I mean, right that day, came and got him. It was kind of weird. The guy showed up. It's a funny story. It's like 20 degrees outside. The guy shows up, and he gets out of the car, and he comes walking up. He's wanting this for his daughter because they had a pet rabbit that died, and they wanted a new rabbit. And like I said, he's perfectly fine pet. And I explained to him on the phone. I said, yeah, he's friendly. He'll come right up to you. He likes to be petted. Doesn't really like to be picked up. And he said, yeah, that's kind of how our rabbit was too, so I think he'll fit in just fine. Great, come and get him. So he shows up to get him. He gets out of the car with like nothing like what I'm wearing, like a pullover type thing and a t-shirt on and jeans, and that's it. And I said, did you bring something to put the rabbit in? Oh, no, I figured I'd just hold him. Somebody else was driving. And he said, I figured I'd just hold him. I was like, I don't think you're going to want to do that. Well, I'll put him in my shirt. Okay, if that's what you want to do. So we go back there. He peels his shirt off, his outer shirt, and he's got like a tank top on. So he's standing out there in 20-degree weather, wraps the rabbit up in this shirt. I imagine he was all scratched up by the time he got home, but who knows? All right, what else we got here? Kyle Clark's given us the recipe for electrolysis. Half a cup of washing soda to 5 gallons of water. Thank you, I appreciate that. I can't ever remember the exact amount to put in. Okay, so the mucus coming out of the rabbit's mouth we talked about earlier, brown with a little green. Yes, only when it eats. That is strange. You might check its mouth and see if it's got a like an abscess inside its mouth, like some kind of infection or something, and maybe that's what you're seeing. Brown with a little green doesn't sound like mucus to me. It sounds more like well, excuse me, this is gonna be gross, but like pus, like you would see in a like an abscessed tooth or an infection or something like that. So you might check and see. It's gonna be hard to hold the rabbit and open its mouth, but that would be something that I would look at. How many minutes? Olivia's wanting to know how many minutes was it. I'm not sure what you're asking me. How many minutes it was? Mary Monk made it. Hey, glad to see you. Glad you can make it. We took a giant Angores. We took a drink at the same time. Well, no, I don't know what that means, but cool. Mary Monk's talking about the drop-down nest boxes. Uh-oh, somebody's contacting me. Let me make sure it's not important. Nope, it's not. We can deal with that later. Okay, drop-down litter boxes, no problems with the hair or the poop. Well, like I said, no problem with it. If it works out well for you, go for it. I've just, I just have the extra one, the ones that I just put in the cage for them, and it works out well for me. But hey, whatever's working for you, that works. But I'm curious, no problems with the hair or the poop. Do you have any problems with cleaning them out? After the litter is done and gets out of the nest box, how big of a pain is it to kind of clean those things out? I always thought it would be difficult, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay, Melody Smitty wants to know, curious about if wolves are a problem in domestic meat rabbits like they are in wild. Oh, you're talking about botflies, called wolves a lot of the time. Yeah, they can be. It depends on how common they are in your area. But yes, they can definitely. I mean, they'll infect a domestic rabbit the same way they would a wild meat rabbit. It's not usually a major concern if you get one. They're not really that hard to take care of usually. But yeah, I mean, I've never had a problem with them myself. Walt Lars says, howdy from California. Hey, Walt, glad you could make it. Tiffany Dimas says, hello from Texas. Was wondering what's your opinion on grow-out rabbit tractors on the ground. Well, I've kind of talked about, and that's a good question, actually. I've talked about raising rabbits on the ground, why I don't do it, because it does increase the risk of disease and parasites and all those kinds of things. But if they're just grow-out rabbits, they're going to be butchered anyway. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, why not use rabbit tractors to move them around if you want to. I don't see any problem with that. In fact, I've actually kind of toyed with the idea of maybe doing something similar. The only problem you're going to have is maybe protecting them from predators. predators, you know, the neighbor's dog, the cats, all those kinds of things, but that may not be a big issue either. All right, what else we got here? Hey, do you sanitize your quail eggs before you incubate? And if so, what is the ratio for Listerine and water? I do spray them down with a Listerine water mixture. It's gold Listerine and water. It's just 50% each. Half water, half Listerine. Spray them down right before they go into the incubator. Once they're in the incubator, don't spray them down anymore. Right before they go in, then you do it. Walt wants to know if I clip my rabbit's teeth. I don't clip my rabbit's teeth. I make sure to give them like untreated 2x4s and wood and those kinds of things so they can chew on them. They do a pretty good job of keeping them worn down. I haven't had a problem with them having to clip their teeth. I also don't find it necessary to clip their nails either. Lots of people do clip their nails. I've never had a problem with my rabbits. You know, as long as I give them, you know, like I said, blocks of wood to chew on, they'll scratch at them too, kind of keep their nails worn down a little bit. They'll scratch on the resting pads a little bit and keep them down. But I just don't find it necessary to actually clip their nails. All right, Christine Stagg says, in the RV, we use a dog crate. We converted to a home for the quail with a cage bottom to dump the poop daily. Also, can only have so many quail. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, you converted a dog crate to a home for your quail with a cage bottom. And you have to dump the poop every day. That makes sense. And then, yeah, you can only fit so many in there, honestly. But as long as you're keeping up with it, dumping them every day, yeah, that works great. I can imagine it would be fantastic. You're getting fresh eggs, and you're in an RV, so why not? They work perfect for that. Much better than trying to keep chickens in an RV. That would be a mess. All right, will you get tased or when you get bit by a snake? I'm losing track, Olivia. I'm not sure what you're asking me. I'm sorry. Will you get tased or when you get bit by a snake? I've never been tased when I'm not sure how they would correlate together. I'm not sure. DT Quail and Rabbitry says, can long nails cause sore hocks in rabbits? I have one doe and her nails grow like mad. I had her on wire and solid floors with a box of hay and she sits in it. It's minor right now. Hope it won't get worse. So she has sore hocks now. I've talked about sore hocks before, and you know my personal belief with sore hocks is that it's most of the time a genetics issue. It may be the same thing related to you know why her nails grow so fast that causes her to get sore hocks. You know they found that a lot of times rabbits that get sore hocks, they get them whether they're on wire or whether they're on solid floors or whether they're on whatever. You're doing the right thing as far as giving her you know a solid floor with a box of hay to get in. But I would personally not breed that rabbit. I would call it. That doesn't mean kill necessarily. It just means remove it from my breeding program. Maybe find somebody that wants a pet rabbit that's going to keep it on a solid floor and you know give it to them or something. That's my opinion on that. I don't think the long nails themselves will cause sore hocks though. I can't see how that would correlate to each other. What you may end up with long nails, especially if you keep them on wire floors, is if they get their nail caught in the wire or something and they pull it. You could break a toe or could tear a nail or something like that. So you could end up with foot injuries, but not the same as sore hocks. All right, Maddox and Peyton says, hey, from Jackson, Mississippi, late but here. Hey, you're not that late. We're only 30 minutes in, and thanks for joining. We appreciate it. Walt says it's almost 80 degrees Fahrenheit there today. Well, it's nowhere near that here. I'm jealous. And Joanne Thompson, hello from San Antonio, huh? How are you, Joanne? Melody Smitty says, how can not fly larva be eliminated or prevented? Oh, bot fly larva. How can it be eliminated or prevented? I mean, I guess you could treat with some chemicals or something to prevent it, but I would stay away from that, especially if they're meat rabbits. You know, if you do get a bot fly, what they do is they lay their egg and it burrows into it's like a great big grubworm looking thing, kind of nasty. But they burrow into the skin of the rabbit. You'll get like a kind of an abscess spot there. If you get one on your rabbit, just take some Vaseline or something similar to that, smear it over it, and what'll happen is that thing will start suffocating, so it'll work its way out. And when it does, you can grab it with like a pair of tweezers and pull it the rest of the way out. Be careful when you do it. You don't want to pop it and make it explode. It can make your animal very, very sick, but it's really not that hard to get out of there. Quez the Hunter wants to know if I'll ever raise goats. Maybe. I don't have any plans to get goats right now. My neighbors have a couple of goats. I go over and play with them every once in a while, pet them through the fence. They're super friendly. Love the attention. If you bring a couple of tree branches with you, not tree branches, like little twig tree branches, bring them over and stick them through the fence. Boy, they'll chew on those things. They just love them. They've got a lot of personality. I like having them around, but I don't know that I'll ever add goats. I need to build some better fencing and a couple of things before I could ever do that. Josh Steele wants to know, when do you wean? I assume you're talking about rabbits, because you wouldn't wean quail. But when I wean rabbits, it's usually at anytime after about 6 weeks. I usually wait till they're close to 8 weeks old before I wean. You don't want to wean them before 6 weeks. Usually they kind of wean themselves. They're usually pretty much eating just solid food by that point anyway. So it's pretty easy. I just move them out about 7 weeks old, somewhere right around in there. Walt Lars says, goats can get very noisy, not good for suburbs. Yeah, it does kind of depend on what kind of goats. She's got pygmy goats, so they're not great big. They're about, I don't know, probably 80 pounds, 90, somewhere right around there. And they're not terribly noisy. They're a lot quieter than the neighbor's dog on the road that's all night long. But, that doesn't really bother me either. But, yeah, they're not too bad, really. LJ says, comparing colony to cage, would their grow time differ or meat be different from getting more exercise? I haven't raised in a colony. I don't think that you would see a significant difference if you're feeding pellets to your rabbits. If you're relying on them in a colony to be kind of forage for their food and feed themselves, then they're going to grow out slower than caged rabbits that are being fed pellets. In fact, if you just forage for your rabbits and feed them and they're in a cage, they're going to grow out slower than rabbits that are being fed pellets. That's just common. But I don't think there'd be a huge difference in meat either, honestly. I couldn't really tell you, though. I'd have to experiment with that before I'd know. Okay, Mary Monk says, no problem cleaning them out. Oh, you're talking about the drop-down nest boxes. No problem cleaning them out. The hole is right in front of the door of the cage. Just reach in and pull it out. No problem at all. I usually clean the hay once the bunny's eyes are open. Hey, good to know. Yeah, I figured out you were talking about the drop-in nest boxes. Who knows? Maybe that's something to add at some point in the future. Walt says there's an internet myth that says using a stun gun after a snake bite will relieve the pain. Oh, okay. You're going back to Olivia's comment earlier that said, do you get tased when you get bit by a snake? Well, I've been bitten by a lot of snakes, but I've never been tased. And I've actually never been bitten by a venomous snake. But snake bites don't really hurt that bad. It's not that big a deal. I just go on with life like it's no big deal. All right, Joe Shelburne says mini Rex must have a resting pad on wire. Mini Rex are prone to sore hocks. I put resting pads in all my rabbit cages regardless of what kind they are anyway, but I don't raise mini Rexes either. There are some rabbits, and most of them are going to be the pet rabbits that are more prone to sore hocks. Mini Rex, Lops, a lot of those kinds of things that are generally sold as pets, they're going to be more prone to sore hocks. Russell Schubert says, can you wash eggs if they're dirty? You can, but you're best off not washing them. Just kind of brush off the debris the best you can, but don't wash them until, if you're going to eat them, don't wash them until right before you eat them. They stay fresh longer if they're not washed. When you wash them, you wash off the what's it called? The membrane that protects the egg. Eggs are porous, and they come with a natural membrane on them, or a natural, what do they call that? The bloom, I think is what it's called. Anyway, you wash that off, and it makes them go bad faster. And if you're going to incubate them, don't wash them. If you have any that are like incredibly dirty, just don't incubate them, throw them out, but don't wash them. Melody Smitty says, I got to get a drink, guys. I'm drying out. Oh, and for you guys wondering, it's Pepsi tonight. Oh, there it goes. All right, what do we say? I raise beef and very easy and fun, very profitable. If I lived out a little bit outside of the city, I'd probably do some of the same kinds of things. But living in town, I live right in the middle of town. Well, right at the edge of town anyway. But it's in town. I couldn't get away with raising beef for sure. It's questionable about whether I could get away with raising goats. Don't want to draw too much attention to myself because might get in trouble if I did. All right, Isabel says, you want something noisy, get a few ducks. They are noisier than my turkeys at feeding time. I'm planning on getting a few ducks at some point. I like ducks, and I like duck eggs. Duck eggs are fantastic, especially like a duck egg sandwich. If you like egg sandwiches with the good runny yolk, man, a duck yolk is like that big around. Oh, they're great. It's fantastic on a sandwich. All right, Josh Steele says best meat rabbit breed. Joanne Thompson says, Josh, I would say California. Josh Steele says Champagne. It depends, Josh. Honestly, there's so many different meat rabbit breeds out there, and they're all pretty good. I've had really good luck with Californians and New Zealand's. Silver Fox, my Silver Fox has been pretty good. I don't have personal experience with Champagnes, so I can't say for sure, but I know that they're reported to be good meat rabbits. I would stay away from the giants, the Flemish giants, and those kinds of things. Although I did have a giant chinchilla cross that did pretty good, but the babies just grow out really, really slow. New Zealand's are pretty good because they've been bred to be meat rabbits. Californians are the same way, so they typically get up to butcher weight incredibly fast. So those are probably good choices, but I mean, there's a lot of different ones. Even full-size Rexes, standard Rex, there's a lot of different choices you could go with. All right, Alex says, what do you do to a, and then it stops. I missed the line. I'm not sure what you're asking. Brian Frick says, my rabbit just had babies 2 nights ago, and I don't think they're being fed. What do I do? Well, what makes you think they're not being fed? I mean, are they like super skinny or something? If they're not super skinny, if it was 2 nights ago and they're still wiggling around and those kinds of things, they're probably being fed. There's not much you can do if they're not, other than, hold the mother down and stick the babies up there and let them nurse. But that's going to be a lot of work. If she's not feeding them, then she does lose the litter and she's a first-time mom, give her another try. That's not that uncommon with first-time moms. It isn't uncommon for them to not do a good job of taking care of their babies. It's just first-time mom things. Give her another chance, maybe 2 more. I usually go by a 3 strikes you're out kind of rule. So if it happens, 3 times in a row where she doesn't do a good job of taking care of them, she's out. I get a replacement rabbit. Hopefully that kind of helps a little bit. Isabel says duck eggs are very rich in flavor. Yeah, duck eggs are fantastic. I really like duck eggs. Walt Lars says eggs have an antibacterial bloom on them. Yep, that's what it's called, bloom. If they're dirt or poo on them, use a dry brush like a mushroom brush. Yep, that's a good suggestion. Like I said, just brush off the dirt. Don't wash them though. And when people get confused because in my videos, I'm suggesting like when you're storing eggs for hatching, you spray them down with a Listerine mixture. That's different than washing them. When you wash them, you're actually like scrubbing them. And with these, it's just a mist. Just a mist. You're not like soaking them in this stuff and then scrubbing them off. It's different. So, Prepared Brad says you like your New Zealand's buddies with silver foxes. Yeah, I've been impressed with the silver fox. She does great. The New Zealand's are great. The Californias are great. Those have been the best ones I've used so far. LLJ says there was a video that spoke of people using a lime and water mixture before refrigeration, I think, to preserve many eggs for the year. A lime and water mixture, huh? I'm not sure. The only thing I can think is that the citric acid in that would kind of keep the bacteria down. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what would cause that. All right, Crystal Marshall says, for rabbits in a building, how would you suggest keeping them cool in the summer? Fans and air conditioners, if you can do it. If they're in a building and you have electricity, a window air conditioner unit would be great. Otherwise, some fans. And don't put the fans blowing directly on the rabbits. Blow them over the tops of the cages to keep the air moving. If you live in a really dry climate, it doesn't work around here because it's too humid in the summer. But if you live in a dry climate, a misting system or like swamp coolers would work pretty well. Again, you don't want to spray the rabbits with the water, but if you spray it around like the tops of their cages and stuff like that, and you've got enough, and it's dry enough that it'll evaporate, it can reduce the temperature quite a bit. Those are the best suggestions I have for it. All right, Jamie says, saw your building stacking. Let me check the time. 44 minutes. Okay. Saw your building stacking quail cages video. Instead of putting heavy gauge wire on the front, you could put it on, and could you put it on the back instead? You could. The reason I put it on the front is because it works really well to make a door. so you don't have to frame the door out to keep it to hold. If you put heavy gauge wire on the back and then you try to make a door in the hardware cloth, it's not going to hold up very well. It's gonna be real flimsy and want to fold up on you and not hold up very well. So that's the reason I put it in the back, or in the front, excuse me, because I made the door on it. Mary Monk says, I had one doe not making enough milk. It's been really cold and the babies were piled up and she was only feeding the one on top. It's been a couple of days. I ordered some dried nettle and I heard about calves manna, but I also heard it causes mastitis in rabbits. Any ideas what to do? Honestly, aside from, spreading the babies out, maybe, taking the babies to her, you could remove them. You could take them to her 2 or 3 at a time. See if she'll feed them all that way. Hold her down, let the babies nurse on her when you do. There's a lot of different things there. If she's not making enough milk, whether it's cold or not, that's really not a good sign. If she's a first-time mom, again, that may be all it is, that she's a first-time mom. But if they're just newly born, then you might just give her a little bit of time. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for the milk to come in. It's not just an immediate thing all the time. And the act of feeding the babies a lot of times will make her produce more milk. So make sure you're not feeding anything like mint either. Mint and dandelion, I think, falls into that category too. Can dry them up a little bit, so it can really reduce their milk production. Not that you are feeding mint this time of year, but just in case. Those are the best suggestions I have. Honestly, if I have a rabbit that can't feed all her babies, I give her 2 or 3 times and then she's gone. I get a new rabbit. I've never had problems with rabbits not producing enough milk, other than maybe a first-time mom. Other than that, never had a problem with it. If I do, I consider it a bad mothering trait, and I just get a new rabbit. Caleb wants to know, have you ever tried to find a market for rabbit pelts? No, I've never really tanned a bunch of rabbit pelts, never really tanned rabbit pelts, and never really looked at getting a market for it. I did find some people that would buy some, but it wasn't, they don't pay much for them, and it didn't really make it worth the effort for me. But that was just kind of looked around, and I didn't really make a big effort on it. Allison says, get some goat's milk and Esbalac. I'm not sure what Esbalac is, but yeah, some goat's milk. You could feed the rabbit babies yourself. Again, for me, that's a lot of work to keep up with. I guess you only got to do it once or twice a day, but still, it's a lot of work to keep up with. I just go back to the rabbit. If she's not taking care of them, then she goes. She doesn't earn her place in the rabbitry. Prepared Brad says, I have seen videos where people wash eggs and then coat with mineral spirits. They say they can keep on a counter for 9 months. I've seen some of that kind of stuff too. And also where they dip them in wax, coat them with wax, all kinds of things you could do like that. That would work. There's no reason. Eggs keep an incredibly long time. You don't have to refrigerate them. As long as they don't get, if they're fertile eggs and they get above about 80 degrees, they're going to start developing. But if you keep them down below about 80 degrees, you can just leave them on the counter. Actually, try to keep them down below about 70 degrees, but keep them on the counter, and they keep for a long time on the counter. I've got eggs in the fridge right now that I haven't done anything with, and they're probably 3 months old, and they're just fine. Some of them go bad a little bit earlier, but some of them just keep just fine up to 3 or 4 months. All right, Braden wants to know, have you ever hunted or fished? Well, yeah, I grew up hunting and fishing. A couple of things I always tell people I don't remember learning how to do. I don't remember learning how to walk. I don't remember learning how to talk. I don't remember learning how to swim. I don't remember learning how to fish. And I don't remember learning how to shoot a gun. It just seems like those are things that I've always been able to do. I just kind of grew up with that stuff. So, yeah, I do hunt. I do fish all the time. Walt says a low-tech AC for a small area. Put a desktop fan in a hole in an ice chest with a block of ice or frozen water bottle. Cut hole in the side of the ice chest. Yeah, I've seen that before. Around here, frozen water bottles only last a couple hours at the most. But that works. There's no reason it wouldn't. Braden wants to know, what is a good place for putting rabbits? You mean for keeping rabbits? I'm not sure if I understand the question. A good place for putting rabbits would be if I'm keeping rabbits, I keep them outside. Keep them in an area in the summertime that's going to be shaded. You don't want full sun on them. Keep them in an area where you can block the wind so they don't get wind blowing on them all the time. And other than that, there's not really much of a better place than any other place. All right, DT Quail and Rabbitry says, Joe Shelburne, that is very helpful information. I have soft pads that I just put in with her. I think you're talking about the resting pads for the sore hawks, I think. So, good. All right, Josh says, Josh Del Guzzo, I think? Guzzo? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. Sorry if I'm not. Says, I love your channel. I've been watching your videos for a couple of months now and have learned a lot. I'm going to start raising rabbits this spring. Well, hey, good luck with that. I hope it works out well for you. And, come back and let us know if you have questions. I'll be doing my best. Thank you very much for the kind comments, too. I really appreciate you watching the videos. Silent Wayne says, setting cages for rabbits or quail, what is the best direction to face? North, south, east, or west? I don't know that it matters. I would put them not facing whatever your predominant wind is, so that you can easily block the wind from them. But other than that, I don't think it matters which direction you face them. Yeah, I can't think of a reason why it would matter. Marianne's Hobby says, hi, I'm finally home when you're on. I love your videos on my Prego does. I give them 1/2 of Tums on their second week. Is that okay to do? Yeah, that's for mostly for like the calcium. I find that they don't really need it, but there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, you can give them that extra little bit of calcium. What you may notice is that they start excreting it. You ever see the white, like in rabbit urine that looks white? That's when they're just excreting the extra calcium. But there's nothing wrong with it. It won't hurt them. Walt Lars says, old-time method is to slake, lime, and water. It's called water glide. Oh, you're talking about preserving the eggs. Yeah, you're not talking about, okay, lime and water, not lime like a lime you pull off a tree, lime like pickling lime. That's what you're talking about, water glassing. I'm not real familiar with the process of water glassing eggs, but somewhat familiar. I do know that if you find old crocks like you're going to use for fermentation and stuff, and they've ever been used for water glassing eggs, they say do not use them for, like making sauerkraut or any of those kinds of things in. I don't know exactly why, but they tell you not to do that. And water glassing is not, I've heard some bad things about it, like it's not a proven safe method. It's something you probably shouldn't do. Mary Monk says, I can't wait for some fishing videos. Well, I've done a few fishing videos. I did a couple last summer, I think it was, out just talking about fishing in the rivers, because I'm a river fisherman, and I fish mostly smallmouth bass. So if you go back on my channel, you can find, I'm not sure what the heading is, but if you look just a little bit, under one of those headings, there'll be the fishing videos. I showed how to tie a fish hook on, a couple of things like that. Check them out. You'll see me catch a few fish. You also said you made a lean-to for your rabbits off of your shed. That's kind of what I've done with mine, too. It comes off the back of my house, but it's just kind of it's just a shed that with a little bit of a roof on it, and I use tarp for the sides. It's more or less like a lean-to type thing. All right, T says, my chickens never hatched here in California. I waited till day 23, and they didn't hatch. I opened them, and it looked like they developed, but just didn't hatch. What happened? Boy, it could be any number of things. If they fully developed but didn't hatch, that could be, it could go back to a number of different things. One would be if they didn't pip the shell at all, then it could go back to too much calcium in the bird's diet. If the birds have too much calcium, the, what do you call it? The shell, the egg shell is too thick sometimes, and it's hard for them to break through. So that is a danger of adding a lot of extra calcium to your bird's diet if they don't need it, especially with quail. But the other things that could be problem, it could be bacterial, it could be too low of humidity. They got shrink wrapped inside their shells when they tried to pip them because the humidity was too low. And you said you're in California. I don't know if that's a really dry part of California. That may be a concern. Number of different things that could be causing that. All right, Christine Stack says, you comment over 80 degrees, will the quail hatch the eggs if I go in my RV to a warm area, like, say, California or Arizona in the summer over 100 degrees? It's unlikely that your quail will hatch them. Quail don't typically go broody and sit on eggs. If they do, they usually don't have a very good hatch rate. It's possible, and it has happened, but it's rare. It doesn't happen very often. What rabbits do you recommend raising? Well, it depends on what you want to raise them for. If you're looking for meat rabbits, then whatever you can find. I like California. I like New Zealand's. And New Zealand, I always say New Zealand whites, but honestly, New Zealand reds, New Zealand blacks, New Zealand, all those kind of work out the same. California, New Zealand, silver foxes, those are some of my favorites. But there's a lot of different meat rabbits out there. You can get pretty much any kind you want. There's Florida whites, there's tans, there's a whole bunch of them. None of them is really necessarily any better than others. Wallar says, for storing eggs long term without a refrigerator, store in the basement or root cellar in the water glassing. Oh, yeah, you can. Eggs will keep for an incredibly long time without doing much of anything to them. Josh Steele says, what's your target for litters per year per doe? I don't really have a target for litters per year per doe. I just breed whenever I start getting low on meat in the freezer. And right now I'm doing okay on that, good, because I haven't had any litters at all this year. But I pretty much just breed nonstop. Not necessarily back to back. I usually give the doe, once she raises her kits up, I breed her when they're about 6 weeks old. So she gets a couple of weeks break in between litters and then produces another litter. But I don't really have a goal like how many I'm going to get out of them per year or anything like that. LLJ says, Walt, you should go on Jeopardy. I think you'll do well. You probably would, Walt. You should go on Jeopardy. Just my problem with Jeopardy is a lot of times I know some of the answers, but I can't ever remember to phrase it in the form of a question. All right, Marianne's Hobby says, okay, thanks. The feed I can get here in New York is 18% feed, and I give grass mix hay. Once in a while, I give 2 sunflower seeds a day for extra protein. You're talking about rabbits again. Yeah, 18% protein is fine. Nothing wrong with that. Grass mix hay, that's fine too. And 2 sunflower seeds a day for extra protein. I don't remember what we were talking about. Were you having a problem with rabbits, or I can't remember if I'm supposed to answer based on that diet, but it sounds fine. It doesn't sound like any problems. Walt Lars says chick hatching problems could, humidity problem during lockdown. It needs to be raised. Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards that too, but it's hard to really say for sure. All right, Josh Delgazzo says, do you think San Juan rabbits are good for meat rabbits? I've heard good things about them. Don't have experience with them myself, but try them out and let us know. Mary Monk says, I have a chinchilla that I bred with in New Zealand, and they make the biggest, healthiest baby. Mama chinchilla is the best mama rabbit I have. I had a giant chinchilla for a while, and I bred her to my California buck. And I'll tell you what, one thing, man, those were the cutest baby rabbits ever. It was really hard to butcher those rabbits. They were adorable. Just kind of a big, fluffy looking rabbit. I mean, they're cute as can be. And she did a great job taking care of them. It just took them like 12 weeks to get to butcher size, whereas most of my rabbits are there by 8 weeks. So it did take a little bit longer, a little bit more feed to feed them out. They were a little bit meatier, I think, than like a regular New Zealand, but it took a lot longer to get there. Walt Lars says, for hatching chicken eggs, don't use layer ration because it has extra calcium. That's to reduce breakage during shipping. Yeah, exactly. Good point, Walt. If you're looking to hatch eggs, and I hear people all the time with quail, and I've addressed this in some videos before, but all the time with quail, they'll put a picture on, like in Facebook groups or whatever, about, I got an egg that had a cracked shell or no eggshell on it or whatever, and the first answer everybody gives is, you need to add calcium. You need to give them calcium, crushed oyster shell, and that's usually not the answer. Usually, that's just a one-off thing. I mean, quails sometimes, especially when they first start laying, they sometimes lay a shell or an egg with no shell. Game bird starter has 1% calcium, and if you add extra calcium, it can actually cause problems with your hatch rate because it does make the shells too hard for the chicks to pip through as they're trying to hatch. Mary Monk says she does a fantastic job and usually has to take on some babies from other rabbits in her rabbitry. That's a good point I hadn't thought about. Is that if you were breeding multiple rabbits at the same time, which I don't do typically, but if you were, then that chinchilla would make a good foster mother. If she had a litter already, and you had another rabbit that wasn't doing a good job of taking care of it, like LLJ, I think we were talking about, was it your rabbit that wasn't all of them getting fed? Somebody, the rabbit babies weren't all getting fed. That'd be if you had a second rabbit that had babies, especially like a giant chinchilla or something like that, that's such a good mother, and is a bigger rabbit that can handle taking on some extras, then you could foster them over to that, and that would take care of your problem with that. Walt, you actually tried out for Jeopardy. Just didn't make it, huh? Oh, no. Prepared Brad says, what weight are your rabbits at 8 weeks? Mine are about 3 to 4 pounds. Mine are generally close to 5 pounds. I mean, that doesn't hold true every single time. But I try to, if the rabbit's not producing babies that get up there by close to 8 weeks, then I get a new doe and I replace her. Most of my New Zealand's though and Californians, they all pretty much get there by about 8 weeks. Silent Wayne's leaving. Good night to you. I got to get this wrapped up too, guys. I've been here just a little over an hour. Got to go spend some time with the family, eat dinner, and have some family time. Didn't make the cut for for Jeopardy, huh? Try it again next year, Walt. You might do it. We'd love to see you on there, and we'll be all here rooting you on. All right, guys, I got to get this wrapped up. I want to thank you guys for joining again. Appreciate it. And yes, chinchilla is a rabbit breed. They also have, I mean, they're also chinchillas, but we're talking about the giant chinchilla rabbit breed. They're really soft, and they're kind of neat rabbits. I like them. But, okay, I got to stop looking at the comments because I'll keep talking if I do. So thank you guys for watching. Appreciate you joining. As always, I want to wish you guys a good evening. Tell you guys, each and every one of you. And we'll see you guys again next week. Everybody have a great night.